Andrew, you mentioned something earlier about kind of lessons learned, and I think as an industry, as a business owner myself, and I'm sure for you, Andrew, and Jeff, and for yourself as a sales professional, I mean, there's been a lot of lessons learned in the last couple months. I mean, boy, I've had to really rethink a fair amount of our product offerings, our strategies, our personnels. I mean, there's just I've learned so much in 2 months. I probably learned more in the last 2 months than I probably have in the last 24 months of the things of do's and don'ts. But I'd love to kind of hear your guys' thoughts of, if you were to say what was the single most important thing that you've learned during, COVID-19. Andrew, I'll start with you, and then Jeff, I'll ask you the same question.
Um, like what personally as a company? I
Yeah,
just
as a
wanted
business
to.
owner.
Well, so as a business owner, I mean, I learned how like much quicker I got to start moving, and it lit a fire. It lit a fire under my ass because I didn't feel safe. So when the economy and everything was collapsing around me, I didn't feel safe for my family. I didn't feel safe for, my company, for our team, for our employees, for their families. Right. So, I realized that, I gotta start moving a lot quicker, and we gotta start going a lot bigger and making bigger moves faster. So this kicked us into a whole like overdrive, turbo. The company, we just started going like nuts, so with products, with product releases, with partnerships, with company growth, like we gotta take this thing we have right now and 100x it. And I saw fear in everybody, dude. And you can't, like, the last thing you need to do right now is give your salespeople a reason not to sell. So you got to give people a reason to sell. You got to give people a reason to get up, right? To make that call right now. People need a reason and a purpose, and that's what you need to be doing is giving that. And you guys were just touching on something, and it just like a thought came to my head. Like, the number one thing that everybody wants to feel besides happy is safe. Is safe. And Jeff, you touched on something that might be kind of a smaller percentage, which is like all the snowbirds coming back now that might need cars. But you also touched on something that's massive, actually, and that was the population that was, like you said, Jay, was doing ride sharing and Ubering, right? And like that, and public transit, relying on public transit, which doesn't feel safe right now. And there's a safety factor of owning your own vehicle. There is. It's your own thing. It's your own domain. It's your own personal space. I don't have to sit beside, somebody on a bus, and if they cough, I'm freaking out, thinking I've got the corona. I'm done. I'm finished. So there's a whole. I think there's a whole market about to emerge that also wasn't going to be in market for a vehicle, that now they're like, you know what? I'm not getting back on public transit. I'm not getting back on. Like, if they're in any sort of financial position to do that, I think we're going to see a lot of people come into the market. And as an industry, we need to be ready to serve them, and help them out. So, and I think it's just going to add to sales. So I really think that as an industry we can have a great summer. I really do. I think sales over the next 30 days could just start to skyrocket. I really believe that. I'm not saying that from a place just to motivate people that are down. I think that there's like a massive opportunity here to have some of the biggest months you've ever had. As a store, and as an individual, like as an individual salesperson, I think you could do like, I think you could have your biggest month. Like in Canada, we usually experience July as like cottage season, right? So like we get the spike in spring, and then like June, July, Canada Day long weekend, right? Sales kind of do this. Like, they're not terrible. It's not like January, February, but they peak back down, then fall, they come back up. Well, like, come on, man. The industry's down 75%. How much lower are we going to go? Like, I think we're going to start to see this through times that, I think July, this could be your biggest July you've ever had, is what I'm saying. I mean that.
Well, and to that point, we have to be prepared to pivot, right? Like
Right.
I feel like we kind of get stuck into a rhythm, and I think if there's any lesson, one of the biggest lessons I've learned, from COVID-19 is that I have to structure a business and processes that are able to pivot as quickly as the world changes around it. And the world is changing fast. Jeff, you said it. 1 week to the next is sometimes the day to day. And it's just like, how do I build a business that's going to pivot? How do I build processes that are going to pivot? But Jeff, I'm actually curious from you, what has been, the singular most important lesson you've learned so far through COVID-19?
It's gonna sound silly, but compassion, man. Like I think what I like to consider myself a pretty compassionate person, but I think that a lot of times I'm so focused on the next sale, I'm moving and moving and moving that I'm not focused on listening as much. And I think that's one thing that we're as an industry are having to do more. Listen to everybody's stories, individual, what's going on right now, and being compassionate for them and not trying to force things, down their throat. I think we see that the most surprising thing of all this has been the manufacturers and their advertising when all this first came out. Remember, I think you and I and Tyler were talking Champagne before about, like, listen, it's almost like they had a go bag ready, with all this advertising, this compassionate advertising. And, I think that people are going to remember how we handle this right now, how we as salespeople, how we as a dealership, how we as a manufacturer handling this. Obviously, it's a fine line to walk. You have to be advertising to a certain extent. You got to let people know what's going on. But you also have to be compassionate to know that, like, man, you can't be too forceful with some of this. And again, this is my own personal opinion, but you can't be so forceful because I've seen it. It pushes people away more than it helps them. And when they're ready to buy, they're going to remember how people were handling this. So again, I think the biggest thing for me, again, I think I was a compassionate person. I am a compassionate person, but I think I've learned to listen more and focus more on what the customer need is, which again, I thought I did, but I don't think I was focusing on it as much as I have since all of this has kind of gone down. So